Hello. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm gonna do a quick check, or if somebody is already on, can you just send me a hello to tell me that you're getting this? But I'm gonna go check on my LinkedIn profile anyway to check if you can see me. Sorry about that noise in the background. I think I need to turn off my. Oh, I don't see my. Oh, yes, I am. I am live right now. Goody. So I'm going to wait for a couple of seconds, but please, please, please do say hi. I'm here. I'm ready to talk. You know what it is. So, yes, please feel free to say hi. I've just checked on LinkedIn. It says I'm live. Oh, yeah, I'm definitely live. 23 seconds. I usually like to wait. Oh, hi, Chanel. LinkedIn user, I'm really sorry. I can't see your name. Can you tell me who you are? Thanks so much for joining. I nearly said ladies, but that was an assumption. Thanks for joining on this Friday. I feel like I don't know if I'm just the only one, but after this week, I definitely feel like we need some kind of joy uplift because I don't know. The child queue story has still got me stressed. It's still here and still here. So this is going to be like a nice, and not when I say nice is such an interesting word, but it's going to be hopefully a good conversation. And I really do encourage, if anyone's had time to read the report beforehand, please feel free to also ask questions if you want to. And I'm going to introduce myself just in case nobody knows who I am. So I am going to, actually, how long have we been on it? Nearly 2 minutes. I'm going to wait another minute and then I'm going to jump straight into the intro. Hey, Kit. I'm going to jump straight into the info. Hi, Mammy. Thank you. So, yeah, a lot of you already know me, but I still have to introduce myself properly for anybody who might be new among us. And I also have a surprise, and I do love a surprise. So there's somebody waiting in the wings to join me today. But first of all, thank you for those of you who could kind of take the time out to join. This, and I'm going to talk about it in the first person as I'm so, first of all, happy and honored really that everybody who took the time to fill out this survey trusted me with their data, with their stories, with their information, because it's not easy sharing this information. And you know what? I have to be completely honest. If this was me a few years ago and somebody said, tell me the truth about your working experience, I wouldn't have wanted to share it, and I would have shared it with another Black woman, but that still would have been a huge hurdle for me, because it would have part of me would have been forced to admit that the construct, the picture that I created isn't the one that was real. So this has kind of been, thank you all. Like literally, you can't see my hands, but I'm going to do it like that. You can also see my nails. Thank you all for really trusting me with your data. And, I hope this is the first one, but it's not the last one. And we're going to keep doing this because, the bottom line for me for this report was always, we have to start to bend and force the arms of corporations to make a change, to stop hiding behind diversity and inclusion, but to really drill down, bed down, and put their stake in the ground and say, this is what we're going to do for Black women, because we are listening to Black women. And it was also about, no one can ever say anymore. And you know what? For every year that this report is published, every single year that this report is published, no one can come and say, we didn't know what Black women wanted. And I'm hoping that every single year that goes by, this year, 104 women answered the call. But I'm hoping that, last year, and I'm hoping that this year, when we do it again, I'm hoping that even more women answer it, because we need to keep elevating our voice, and we need to keep spreading this message of, it is not enough to have generic solutions. It has to be enough, not even enough. You have to be specific. You have to listen to us to create those solutions. You have to work with us to create those solutions, not by burdening us with it, but taking all the information that we give you and putting it into put it into a solution, basically, because we can't do it any other way. So today, as I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to say, I was reminded of a conversation and the theme of a conversation that I had with Lindsay Stewart. And he talked about making twice the difference. And this is what this report was about for me, making twice the difference. It shouldn't be on us to have to work hard all the time. It should, and one of the most, for me, insightful and impactful questions was, when you're looking at a Black woman joining a team, the reason why she felt a part of the team was because she did the work to make sure everybody else felt comfortable at the sacrifice of herself. And it's like, no, 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 no. This is the whole point of this report, to make twice the difference so that everybody else is not just educated, because you know what education is on the one hand the first step. It's actually to make sure people are coming correct, stepping correct, and that the governance and the processes and procedures are in place. Hi, John. The processes and procedures are in place to make sure that twice the difference is being made and that the burden doesn't fall on us. So without further ado, my surprise today is adding Lindsay. As I said, it was literally surprise, surprise. So hi, Lindsay. Thank you so much for joining, talking about, closing the chasm. And for many of you, Lindsay is a really good friend of mine. And this concept around making twice the difference, it's so important that the burden isn't on us as Black women. And I know, like, it was like, how come Lindsay's on? Lindsay's a Black man. But this is the part that I wanted to really expound upon today. Because you know what? The report tells you a lot. We need more from managers. We need them not only to listen, but we need them to learn and learn themselves, educate themselves. Because it's, I think for me, and I'm going to ask your opinion on this as well, Lindsay, is the buck has to stop with the companies. They can no longer expect us to do all the heavy lifting. And I think this is why, for me, the report's important in terms of making twice the difference, because I don't want us to be, this week, I don't know, like this week with Child Q has already got me all sorts of, like, I don't have the words for that. But imagine I think of every Black woman who has to go into an office, who is listening to the news about Child Q weighing on her heart and having to deal with that and thinking, and now I have to try and be normal. Now I have to, it shouldn't be on us anymore. And it's I don't know the word, sensitizing. Is that the right word, Lindsay? Sensitizing.
He'll do.
I don't know, like I got the German word in my head, but it's bringing that part to companies to say, you have to understand the context and backdrop of what it means to be a Black woman. Because that was like, I think it was 80% of the women said, managers don't understand what it means. And it's one part to, I always say, when I used to work for a big brand, when you're within the big brand's context, you have the umbrella of this brand's reputation to protect you. But when you walk outside, you're just another Black woman. But you have to carry all of that into the work context. And that is, for me, where I hope the line of differentiation is that companies understand that part. They understand the context and the backdrop and how critical that piece is in understanding who we are, where we sit, how we exist in the world at large has a huge impact as to how our working life is. But I wanted you to kind of talk about your making twice the difference, because I think this is a really, really important point, because the twice the difference part is going to be how we make an impact going, or, how an impact will be made. Let's change it into passive voice going forward.
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for inviting me on at the very, very last minute to do a live talk today. I wasn't expecting that when I woke up this morning. But also thanks for compiling this important report and survey. It really does give a lot of valuable insights. So yeah, about how the concept of making twice the difference has come up. It's casting back actually to summer of last year when I worked with the CFA Black Professionals Working Group. I see Natalie in the chat somewhere, but yeah, big thanks to everybody for the help that they put in to make that a success. And I came up with the message of you know, as Black people, as people who have historically been excluded from various different workplaces. I'm from the financial services background, but it's, you know, it's a universal story pretty much in countries like the UK where we currently are. It's often drummed into you to have this idea that you have to work twice as hard to get the recognition that people in advantage groups get. And you do have to work hard, but you don't always have to work twice as hard. And I've kind of developed this ethos of looking for opportunities where you can make twice the difference, where you can make twice the impact, the skills, the experience, the knowledge that you have. And I think that's a valuable thing that you can apply across this big piece, whether it's professional development or diversity and inclusion, like we're talking about now. Yeah, a really valuable concept. So really honored that you've kind of taken that and made it your own and trying to apply this to your report. And I just want to pick up on one other thing you said. Yes, I'm sat here as a Black man talking about issues that affect Black women, but I think that's very much an illustration of where things are. It's that the people who are affected by these power imbalances and by discrimination and disadvantage, it's not for those people to solve those issues. It's people,
Right.
you know, up to very recently, I was a senior manager in an important organization. It's for those people in those positions of power to actually look at those issues and think about what steps they can take to address them and make sure they're talking and listening to the people who are affected. So I think it's a really important conversation. So thanks for inviting me on.
No, it's my pleasure. And for me, the twice the difference part and twice the impact is, you know, there's two parts, right? There's the voice of us as Black women that needs to be continuously elevated because it's always drowned out by the what about other groups, what about, you know, everyone. No one wants to specifically say Black women. And also it's also been, you know, diverted to being an American voice, an American story, an American issue, which we know it's not. This is very much a European issue. And, you know, today, one of the other reasons why I wanted to have the call was the live is to kind of talk about 4 themes that I think I didn't put them in the report because I didn't ask direct questions about them, but they are, and they've become more poignant this week, but they are themes and issues that came out in the report just through reading the questions. And one of the biggest points was mental wellness support. That there were, you know, as I said, I didn't sanitize the report in terms of sanitizing it to make it sound better for the audience. I did sanitize the report in terms of protecting the data of the any of the respondents, because there was a lot of traumatic stories that were shared with me. And what I realized is that companies also need to start thinking about the whole being of being a Black woman, i.e., they need to provide and create. I don't want to hear someone tell me that they want to create a safe space. Like that's fine, like create a safe space, but we need active support. Because the trauma of what happens in the workplace, you don't just forget it when you go to a new place. It's very present. You know, some of the experiences that were being shared with me were experiences that happened 1, 2, 3 years ago. Am I still traumatized by some of the things that I experienced in the workplace maybe 8 years ago? Yeah, probably. And there has to be more support provided. But I don't know if, you know, in terms of therapists, like real therapists that come in, or psychologists or counselors, and not just about your career and your ability to do your job, but what support do you need as an individual? What support do you need right now? What is it that is weighing on your mind? Because I think we've got to the point which is companies are focused on our output. They're focused on us being workers. They're focused on us being tools, you know, the good old phrase human capital, but they're not focused on us being point blank humans. They're not focused on us being stigmatized, excluded, marginalized within society, and what effect that has when we're having to deal with the same issues within the working context. To your point, it's not for us to solve our problems. It's for companies to meet us more than halfway. And one of the beautiful things that came out of that report is how much Black women are actually doing. So in case anyone hasn't had time to read it, which is completely fine, you know, we're breaking stereotypes. We are investing in ourselves. We are strategically planning our careers. We are kind of trying to come up with case point A, B, C, D, and E, unfortunately, we're forced to come up with all these options because security, and that's like a larger context, and generational wealth, and that not being the case, especially when we're first generation, second generation, is very different. But we're still coming up with plans. We're still deciding that we're not waiting. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that companies shouldn't be there coming to do their part. And I think one of the biggest ways, aside from the governance structure, I think one of the biggest ways companies can have an impact is not just to celebrate Mental Health Week, or I think it's Mental Health Month or Day or whatever, is to offer real resource, invest in real resource, whether it's a weekly therapy session, monthly therapy session. That's dictated by need. But I think that's one of the points where companies can make twice the difference by investing in us on a real level.
Yeah, Leanne, I think that's really, really important. And that's me speaking as somebody who's actually availed himself of, company provided mental health support more than once, actually. I think on the one hand, the companies, they do kind of have that responsibility to think about the overall health of their workforce, and particularly those in minoritized communities, and see what they can provide for it. But I think there's also a bit of a bridge to cross for those of us in those situations to think, do you know what if I do actually reach out and get some professional help here? Because I think about the ways that's really helped me. Each time it's kind of been, I'm trying to deal with a work situation where I'm feeling burnt out and stressed, but then when you actually speak to a professional, you'll realize how much all that other stuff you mentioned, the disadvantage you face in society, or the various interactions you have with people, how much of that you still carry with you, even from quite a long time ago, things that you might not have really appreciated the impact of. So I think it's a case of being open-minded on both sides there. Definitely an important point.
I think it's the reality is that we do not get to extricate ourselves from gender, neither nor gender nor our skin color. So in looking for help, that also has to very much be a part of the conversation, and it can't also be, and in many cases, no one said this to me so far, like, why is this report needed? Like, no one said that. But it's coming, but no one said it. But the other part is that it's thinking about this part about equity. So, do Black people need Black therapists? I think yes, as the first place to go, so that you don't have to explain and educate. That's twice the difference. Understanding that in vulnerable situations, sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody where you don't have to explain that particular part because it's already understood. And I think this is this is for me like a key. When I say a key finding, it's just something that companies really need to have front and center, because everything that is sitting on the Black community right now is like a pressure cooker, and there has to be an outlet. And the stress of work and the stress of all those, day-to-day frictions just exacerbates it. So I think, like, for me, I didn't put this in the report because this wasn't a direct question that I asked, but it's definitely something that I'm going to highlight going forward, because it's critical for our success and well-being within the workplace. We talk about mental wellness and mental health, but it's always, to your point, you're open, and you said, you've availed yourself of this before, twice. It's a really critical part that we have to, on the one side, we have to engage with, but on the other side, companies need to make sure that it's clearly communicated that what's the word? Not opportunity, but that resource is there.
Yeah, very important.
And then there was another one. Now, I love this particular point that came out, and it was, I didn't publish this, as I said, I didn't put this in the report either. It was the power of instinct, because I was, from a question point of view, I'm always curious to know how inclined we are to follow our instincts, and what's the drivers for us following our instincts, and what's the drivers for us ignoring them. And in a lot of cases, the drivers for us ignoring our instinct is the fact that we need the security that a job may provide. And that's within several contexts. That's within the context of deciding to take a job. That's within the context of lasting out in situations. that are difficult, trying, all that kind of stuff. But in every single instance, when I asked about instinct, everybody confirmed, I think 95% of the women confirmed that when they ignored their instincts, the situations did arise that they most feared. Like when I say most feared, a troublesome person at work, a person who isn't on board with them, all of this kind of stuff. And I felt like it was one of those parts where just for like Black women at large, it was for me like a rallying cry to say, don't ignore your instinct. Sometimes the right decision is the hardest decision to make. Hardest. And like this week has been a week like that for me too. The right decision is sometimes the hardest decision to make. But if your instinct is overwhelmingly telling you that this is the right thing or the wrong thing, listen to it. Listen to it, because that's what it sounds so arbitrary within the work context, but it was one of those questions that when I saw the answer, it literally made me smile, that we are in tune with our instinct, whether we choose to listen to it or not. It's like a completely different question, but we are in tune with it.
Yeah.
And that was just like an amazing thing to see, just to kind of say, if something is in the back of your mind saying this doesn't add up, even if everything else on paper looks like it's right, follow the instinct. It simply doesn't add up. And that was kind of, for me, this is me sharing it on a personal level. That was for me like a real reality check, as in a confirmation also to myself, which is, follow your instinct. The result in the initial phase might be a bit difficult. It might mean that you might not take that job. It might mean, that you have to navigate your path differently, but it still means it's the right thing for you to do. By the way, I'm just going to say to everyone, if anyone has any questions about the report or wants to give any feedback in the chat, please feel free. Like Lindsay and I are talking and I'm just adding a little bit more to it, but don't be shy in sharing any information, anything that surprised you, anything that you were happy to see, anything that you would realistically also like to see and like to know. Like drop it in the comment box, because we can see all the comments. Please feel free, because you all know that I can talk a lot, but at the same time, I still want it to be interactive. Like I still want people's thoughts, because it's just it's not about how it's how do we keep making twice the difference? How do we keep making sure that the voices of Black women are not only elevated, but are continually driving solutions, continually, not just being kind of taken as I'm going to take your information and I'm going to pack it into a solution for everybody else. Like, how do we keep making sure that this conversation continually is had? And that's probably one of the goals for this year for me, is to make sure that we don't forget about these solutions, that companies cannot say we don't know, because we will keep pushing this data. We will keep talking about it until we start to see significant movement. Because you know what would kill me? What would kill me is we do the Experience Chasm survey again at the end of this year, and I'm publishing a report this time next year that says there's been no change, because that means that means I haven't also done my job, because this is part of what we have to see. These are the changes that we need to see. We can't have it's been another year and we've seen nothing, because we're moving into, I worry that we're moving into territory of deceleration and regression when it comes to being honest and open, when it comes to talking about Black women. We're just packaged very nicely into other groups, but no one is, doing as much as we can be doing and should be doing right about now. So like, that's just my initial, let's say, kind of, not my initial, that's like not just a hope. That's what I'm driving for. I'm driving to see that next year the changes will be significant. I don't know what significant is in the grand scheme of things. Like, I don't want to put a number on it, but I just don't want it to be everything has stayed the same in the last 12 months. Because I don't think we as a society, we as organizations can afford for things to stay the same as it has. And then the next theme was network awareness. Now, this was an interesting one. because there were quite a few things that came up around what held black women back from being able to forge an internal network. And some of the topics were location, heavy workload, etc., etc. But one of the large ones that came out was being unaware of the network. What would you, and I'm just asking, just from your personal experience, what is your take on twice the difference when it comes to networks and building?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think I've been fortunate in that I've been both on my own initiative and through companies that I've worked for, businesses that I've worked for, organizations that I've worked for, being able to kind of plug into various very targeted and directed networking opportunities with a view to career advancements. I've been quite fortunate in that area, but it's also quite apparent that that doesn't really happen for everybody on the same at the same rate, or those opportunities are not evenly distributed, I think is what I'm trying to say. So I think that's a really important point that you've touched on there. It's just that the extent to which the organization you're in will publicize opportunities to get to know other people with both similar experiences and experiences very different to your own is really, really critical to kind of helping build that culture of inclusion and helping people learn where they need to be to advance.
Yeah. And for me, like, I feel like I can still remember, like, and this, one of the suggestions I gave and tips for the companies was create a networking partner, not a sponsor, not a mentor, but that one person who is senior enough that they get invited to everything, even if it's not even relevant. And I'm sure everyone can visualize that person. And it's like, make them the network partner for somebody who is up and coming, because no one, as you said, nobody advertises the network at all. I remember only finding out about some meetings because I knew somebody who happened to like me who said, do you want to come? And I remember in a particular situation, me asking my boss, can I go to this meeting? And him saying to me, oh, I didn't know about it. Can I come too? And I was like, yeah, I was just invited. So, whatever. But, that's the part about network. I think no one readily tells you that there is one. No one's ever going to say this is the network and these are the members. And I think that's why when people start in a new job or move to a new department, there has to be a formalized way of creating network partnering, because no one's going to, if it's your direct boss, maybe they're going to feel like you're in competition with them, right? If it's, there has to be a way to kind of bridge that gap to create networking partners as opposed to purely sponsors, because sponsors can open doors for you, but they don't always necessarily work in your department. They don't necessarily always touch the part of the business that you're in. And from the other side, I always think, like, from our side, and I'm not going to necessarily say like take the initiative per se. I'm going to say sometimes it was, and I learned about this because I put my foot in a lot of mess, which was sometimes you have to observe the relationships and the networks before you kind of try to build your own, because it's easy to think, you start and everyone's hyped and you're the new girl and you're the new girl and everyone wants to get to know you, but that's not somebody put, and I didn't put this, but one of the things about networks, someone said the level of politics was one of the barriers to deciding to build a network, because that's the other point, right? When you don't know who is who in real life, and that's exacerbated by us being in this hybrid environment, you don't know how to position yourself. And I think observation in some cases, instead of stepping foot forward first, is one of the ways in which we as Black women can hopefully mitigate some of the risk in being burned. But at the same time, the companies need to come forward and think about, if they had to isolate where their key man risk is in the business, I think you'd pretty much find out who the main networking people are, who are the people that are integral to the business, who are the people that heavily influence the business, and how can you leverage that position to create, yes, sponsorship, but to create opportunity and access to opportunity to Black women within the company. Because I think it correlates completely to key key man or key woman risk. I need to be gender neutral here. And I think that's a strategic decision that a lot of companies potentially wouldn't like to do, but at the same time, it's that part about twice the difference, because sponsorship still, when you talk about the conversation, the burden is still put on Black women to go and find sponsors, to go and find a mentor. But it shouldn't be always about us going to seek. It's about how do you close that chasm of lack of opportunity and lack of access.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Equitably,
I think if you have to go and seek all the time, you're just going to find somebody who's kind of 1 or 2 degrees from you anyway, which doesn't always do the job, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And also, I mean, when I think about the hierarchical nature of professional services in general, when I got older, yes, I got bolder, but that still took a lot of self-persuasion to go and reach out to a really senior MD and say, could you, would you, can you, is it okay if, do you mind if sorry for disturb, like all of these apologetic intros to be able to make those connections. Whereas if companies are really forthright about identifying their key men and women, where that risk lies, because that person is so integral to the company, you almost have an immediate source. And that right there is a way to say, well, you know what, if we've got 10, 20, 15 people we don't want to overload them, but if we're serious about creating real opportunity for Black women within our company, we're not just going to say, well, you can have a sponsor. You can, but how does that fundamentally change the dial? How does it really push forth in a way that's meaningful? So that was kind of like my other one. And then my final one, that was, I know we know this, but one of the reasons that a lot of women were kind of debating whether they should take a job was salary. Being offered the lowest part of the band when it comes to, this is the job's bandwidth and this is what I've been offered. Salary, and always being, what's the word? Not undercut, lowballed. That's the word. And I think this is one of the parts of why, okay, I get that a job has a bandwidth, but I almost feel like, why are we still at this point where Black women are still, we know why. It's a rhetorical question. We know why. But it's like, if these practices are still being allowed, that you're offering a Black woman the lowest part in the band, then we still need to look at the process. We still need to look at your HR people. And it's kind of like, for me, all of these changes have to happen in tandem. It's education, it's access, it's listening to Black women, it's creating a solution together with Black women. All of this has to happen, I believe, together. And now, no, actually not now, yesterday, just because this, I don't know, it's too slow. But the point for me is, we have to be now in no excuse territory. So, I know nearly everyone on this call has sent the report far and wide. And we have to keep getting it out further and further to say, this is 104 women isn't a lot in the grand scheme of the whole European, context, but this is only the start. And we have to still keep elevating the voice of Black women to show what we want. And it can't just be that when I say what we want, what we expect. What should companies be delivering? If you care about being an anti-racist company, if you care about being an equitable company, if you care about gender equity, then these are the things you really need to do now. Not waiting, not discussing, not prevaricating, not procrastinating. It needs to be done now. And that was pretty much the message. And just to your theory, not theory, you know what I mean, about twice the difference. This is what it has to be. because we now are in a space where we need to see impact for Black women, and it can't be at the speed it was before. In fact, not even twice, like 10 times, 100 times the difference. It needs to be significantly more than it's ever been. And I don't know, like this is just me. Like I feel that this is the way we can keep making impact and keep reminding corporates that we have a voice. It's a large voice, it's a significant voice, and it's one that I refuse to let it be ignored anymore, because we have to keep making a difference. Like, this isn't for me, this is for the next generation, this is for my peers, this is for the future generations. We can't leave the workplace as it currently is. So thank you for being like this morning, as I was thinking, as I said, I know I called you on late, but it was just like this twice the difference stuff is sticking with me. It's really sticking with me. Always thinking of a way to be able to make impact, always thinking of a way to alleviate. If someone said to me, like, what's the function of the report? The function of the report is not only to make twice the difference, but to also alleviate the stress of Black women having to work not just twice as hard, 10 times as hard, 100 times as hard within the corporate space or within professional services. And I like the way you framed that whole twice as hard. I had twice the difference.
I'm glad you found that valuable, Leanne. Good to hear, good to hear. I do have a question for you if no one else has any questions in the chat.
Yeah, go for it, go for it.
What surprised you the most in the findings from your survey?
It wasn't, okay, so this is me like being genuinely serious, and this is why it was one of the highlights. It's because I was also conditioned to thinking Black women aren't investing in themselves. I was also conditioned. So when I saw the amount of Black women who are investing in themselves, it just bowled me over that we are being proactive. We are. Oh, and actually, there was one other point that really surprised me that isn't in the report, which is that we are still, I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but that a lot of the women are still managing to find Black mentors. And I wasn't specifying sex at all, but Black mentors within their companies to guide them. That for me was like a really refreshing piece of information, because that wasn't my experience at all. Like, I didn't have an older Black person at the beginning of my career in financial services to guide me, to advise me. So that, and I think it was well over 60% of the women. Yeah, I think it was like 60% of the women who said that, that they had that. I was floored, to be honest. Like, I didn't expect that to be the outcome. I had, in many ways, in writing the questions and putting the survey together, I guess I also had my expectations of where the answers were going to be. So it was just in general a surprise to get to the data and find that, of course, there's a lot to do, and there is a lot that needs to be changed. But it was so uplifting to see how much we are doing, how proactive we are in spite of everything else. We're doing so much still, and we're being vocal, we're being proactive about building networks, even when sometimes it's costed us. We're going that extra step to make sure others feel comfortable so that we can be successful, that we're still that we're still thinking about our future, that we're even still giving the corporate world a chance to succeed. We haven't, there was absolutely like like all the answers were realistic in terms of hopes and whatever, but I didn't have that feeling that anybody felt bitter or jaded about their experience. It was shared, but there is still hope. And that there's overwhelmingly hope was a refreshing change to the narrative that we all too often hear between, Black women not investing, Black women feeling, always excluded. To read that a lot of the women felt part of their team was great. To read that, that that they had someone, at least one trusted person within the company, I was surprised.
Right.
It was I didn't, first of all, like, I didn't want it to be a trauma report in the first place, but if it had been purely trauma data, I couldn't have done anything about it. But the fact that it wasn't was a surprise it was positively surprising.
Interesting. That's really valuable.
So it says to me that it's not all doom and gloom, but we're not also going to shy away. And in sum total, it made me think about like Black culture in general. And I'd say like pragmatism, that despite all the issues that we have, there's still that core element of, I'm going to say Black joy. Despite everything that happens, there's still Black joy. Despite everything that happens, we still have hope. We're still so adaptable. We're still so, and I'm not going to use the word in this context of resilient. We're still so adaptable. We're still trying to find ways to continuously make it work. But I feel as though, and this did not come out of the report, but this is just like my own personal feeling. One of the things that I do think, and I'm interested to see what happens the next time, when it comes to making others feel comfortable, I am still curious to see how that conversation develops and how it changes, and if it changes, that we are willing in some cases to sacrifice ourselves and sit in discomfort in order to make others feel more comfortable. I'm looking forward to seeing how that particular track develops, because I don't know, just like anecdotally, we see that as Black women, we're becoming more vocal and we are prioritizing ourselves a lot more now. So I'm kind of curious to see what the impact of this coming year will be on next year's report, and how we kind of and how we've decided to change or protect ourselves a lot more within the workplace.
No, interesting. Looking forward to seeing it.
That was a really long answer. I'm sorry, Lindsay, but you know what? I'm so stupid. I don't know why I didn't ask you to interview me. That probably would have been a good point, because that was just me talking. I'm sorry.
Maybe next year.
It's a date. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else? I mean, everyone's been shy so far, but is there anything else that I wanted to say? I think those were like the main kind of 4 points that I wanted to bring. And just as I said, I am really honored that all these women trusted me with their data and their stories and their experiences and their feelings. And it's always a sense of responsibility to do it justice. And I hope that the first stage is, I hope I did it justice, but the second stage is also, I want this to be the start. I want this to be like the rocket that shakes up companies to go, oops, we need to do something now. But also to be clear that, me, like I'm always going to be fighting in our corner for Black women as well. Like, obviously it's all, a push for gender equality, but because Black women have been left out so much, we can't afford to leave us behind anymore. And I'm always going to be, pushing that forward, because we have to keep it front and center. We have to, otherwise we'll still spend another 50 years, 100 years pushing for women, but forgetting us at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's like my closing. I'm going to give everyone another second to be brave and ask a question. I'm not going to call anybody out, even though I can see your names. But thank you all for taking the time to kind of spend time with myself and Lindsay today. And also, you can slide in my DMs too. I don't think it's even called DMs on LinkedIn, but feel free to, give me feedback. Share as much as you can. And just thank you as well. So wishing everybody a great afternoon. Lindsay, I'm sorry I put you on the spot today, but you know.
No, it's quite all right. You know, I can do it. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for being here and just, adding. I know you weren't part of the report, but I just, I wanted to. I don't believe in stealing people's IP, and twice the difference is, by the way, everyone twice the difference is his. So we're gonna keep it rolling. So, wishing everyone a wonderful Friday afternoon and weekend, and bye bye.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.